instead of panicking, we ended up pivoting, right? And we pivoted straight into like, hey, this is something we want to get into 10 years down the road. Let's just go ahead and do it now. And so we put ourselves in rooms where people who are also investing in multifamily that looked like me and sounded like me and looked like Suzy and sounded like Suzy. So it's like, oh, if these people look and act and sound like me, like, why can't I do what they're doing?
Welcome to the Threefold Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the podcast where you'll not only learn how you can achieve massive success in multifamily real estate investing, but also how you can simultaneously pursue great relationships with your family and a better walk with God. You can achieve financial freedom through real estate investing without sacrificing the relationships that mean the most to you. Now, here's your host, Lee Yoder.
Welcome back, Threefold listeners. I hope you're having a great week this week. We've got two great guests joining us today. Suzy Sevier and Michael Barnhart are joining us from the great city of Dayton, Ohio. Just north from where I am. We have a bunch of stuff in Ohio. They're normally not in Dayton. If you know them, you're wondering why they're not gallivanting all over the world, because that's what they do a lot of, make us all jealous with their pictures. So we'll get into all that. But first of all, a little bit about them and their real estate background, then we'll bring them in here. They are the founders of Adventurous Real Estate Investors. They specialize in a different ROI, that's return on impact. They host the Adventures of Real Estate Investor podcast, and they host a monthly meetup for real estate investors living overseas and investing in the United States, which is what they've done a lot of. So Suzy and Michael, thanks for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really excited to be here, Lee, and we're excited to be living closer to you now, so we can.
I know we're hosting a meetup, and we're hoping they can get down. That busy people. We'll see if they're able to make it down, but we're going to connect for sure. Now that we're living next to each other. But hey, guys, real quick, let's go all the way back. I know you guys were busy professionals. Michael, I think you just got your doctorate not too long ago, right? So a PhD. Congrats on that. So you got other stuff going on. What got you into real estate? How did you guys get the bug? And then maybe just tell us just a little bit of kind of your quick story of your progression into real estate.
No, yeah, I'd love to. So our start happened when we were living in Cambridge, England. So all the way across the pond. And it started because of COVID, actually. When COVID occurred, everything shut down in the UK and much longer than in the US. But Michael and I were like, okay, well, what are we going to do? So we started a mini book club. And one book led to another, which was Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen. And the whole second section talks about real estate investing. Michael's like, read this right now. Like, this is what we have to do. And I was like, okay. So from there, we looked online, found Bear Pockets, From Military to Millionaire. And then it kind of spider webbed from there, right? Like, we found virtual meetups, virtual conferences, and we dove in with as much enthusiasm as we could, because we knew that the lifeline, our dead stop, was when everything stopped being virtual. So that's all we did was virtual everything, educating ourselves as much as we can so that we could take down a deal in the time period that we had, right? Because we noticed right away that the US was like, you cannot shut us down. And so we didn't really know how long virtual anything would happen.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys are reading the books and you're like, all right, Michael, it sounded like you first, this makes sense. The numbers make sense. How did I not know about this before? Kind of that bug never gets this is awesome. I want to do this. But how the heck do you do that? Tell us just a little bit about how did you guys actually get started? How did you actually start investing?
Yeah, so I'll briefly mention. So obviously, all the things you're saying, I was like, all this totally makes sense. And of course, they sell the book that's you can buy real estate, no money down, blah blah. All the things, right? So you're like, of course. Oh, sounds great. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And so what we started doing is just going into learning, like Suzy mentioned, learning more about it. Reading forums and stuff like that, trying to meet people who are also doing the same thing. And what we actually did was we had a false start in single family. And so we were going to go the whole single family route, build up a single family portfolio, and then kind of transition to multifamily down the road. Well, the market we were looking at ended up having a little a inland hurricane, natural disaster that occurred. And so we're like, okay, which is kind of a sign for us, hey, instead of panicking, we ended up pivoting, right? And we pivoted straight into. We're like, hey, this is something we want to get into 10 years down the road. Let's just go ahead and do it now. And so we put ourselves in rooms where people who are also investing in multifamily that looked like me and sounded like me and looked like Suzy and sounded like Suzy. So it's like, if these people will look and act and sound like me, why can't I do what they're doing? Right. So just put ourselves in those rooms where you can, see yourself in other people, and you're like, well, if they could do it, I could definitely do it. Right. So
right. Yep.
gaining that confidence there. And then from there, we started building our network. And then we determined a market after that. And then started telling everybody in these networking groups, where we're investing, what kind of properties we're looking for, like over and over and over again. Because if you don't tell people what you're interested in doing, nobody knows. Right. And so we put all of our partners that way. And then we ended up, getting an organic mentor that way as well, through introductions. Awesome. And then from there, we ended up closing our first property as the leads, and he was just kind of there on the sidelines, kind of helping us and coaching us through the whole process.
That's perfect. That's great. Yeah. So did you have anybody like boots on the ground? Did you have other partners or just? Yeah. Okay. So you shaking your head.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we were telling everybody about it as well. I was telling people on Facebook too. And one of my friends from the Air Force Academy who went to school with me, like reached out and he was like, hey man, I just left, the Air Force. I want to get into multifamily as well. I'm a real wholesale and a flipper right now, but I want to move into multifamily. I can be your boots on the ground. I was like, awesome. And that was in Oklahoma City. And so that's why kind of Oklahoma City was our markets.
Awesome.
We also looking at those markets as well, because they're solid, slow growth. Cash flow, we love it. So
I was wondering if that was going to be part of your story, and I think that's kind of key. It does help to have somebody boots on the ground. You can kind of do it from anywhere, but if you've got somebody on the ground now, that could be your property management company if you develop a fantastic relationship and you really trust them. But having somebody watching them, managing the manager on boots on the ground, that's great too. And then you had that coach, so that's really good. I know that's kind of how your story continued. So sometimes people get started through a team and they lean on that team, but then they're like, man, now I'm going to start investing in my own market. I'm going to do it all myself or whatever. You guys have stayed kind of virtual because you've stayed, overseas and around the world, and you've kind of built it like that. So let's jump in on that a little bit, because I think there's a real benefit to the way that you guys have done it, because you're forced into building the team like that. And if you want to build a real business, and if you want to give yourself the opportunity to scale, that's really the way you want to set it up. I started my own backyard here in Ohio, where you guys are living now, and it's a good place to invest. A lot of similar characteristics like in Oklahoma City, Midwest type stuff. And so I just started investing here, and I could kind of do a lot of it myself. So I started really small, and I did scale pretty quickly. But if I would have been forced to invest in Oklahoma City from Ohio, I would have jumped in that stuff right away, because I knew I would want a property management company. So anyway, let's kind of dig into that, because I think that's really important. If you want to build a business and scale, you need to do the things that you guys have done, even if you are going to invest in your hometown. So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you guys set it up so that you are able to manage a multi-million-dollar business, because that's what an apartment building is, from afar? What are the things, that you have to put in place to be able to do that and do it well?
Yeah. I'm going to start off and just mention one thing, and I'll let Suzy get into the systems and processes part of it.
Yeah.
And so like you mentioned, Lee, is like, you need to have like a boots on the ground partner in the area, or somebody there kind of like watching and things like that. And like, after closing the first deal, and then learning more about a property management company, getting very intimately familiar with them, we realized that, hey, we actually trust our property management company. Like they're very transparent with everything. We know other people who use them as well. And so we continue to use them. And that's why we have stayed in Oklahoma, mainly in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, because we can rely on our property management company there. And that's one reason we haven't moved, because until we can find that same property management company somewhere else, we won't move a different market, because we trust them so much, and they're such an integral part of our business as well. But speaking of business and processes, I'll let kind of Suzy mention.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a big part of it was just that we knew we needed to be organized. And a lot of people think to themselves, they're like, oh, well, I am organized. But like, no, like we really mean it, right? Like for our whole team, there is a Google Drive where they can find every single piece of information that they need. We also use Asana, so that
I've heard of that.
Yeah, at the beginning, we were using Asana with Michael and I for our acquisitions. And then we were like, wait a second, why don't we just use this for our property management company? So or not ours, but the one that we are working with. And so one by one, we were like, hey, to the regional and onsite, I think it'd be really beneficial if we just had everything that was happening in the property in one place. And so we tried it with one property, and then we tried it with another, and it was working so well that the CEO of the property management company actually was like, hey, I want to integrate Asana into all of the properties. Thank you so much for doing this. Yeah, because you can put in tasks that have to be done to the properties with the invoices. If the invoices are approved, there's who they're approved by,
who they're paid by,
They're you can put pictures in there. You can put, their monthly newsletter in there. We have our KPI link. We have delinquency and rent roll. Everything is in one spot. And
Yeah.
that's really what made it so easy, because having email on your computer is completely different from having the email on your phone. Like 90% of the time, there's like, cool, the one attachment I want to pull up isn't going to open on my phone right now,
Yeah.
But like with Asana, everything is all in one place. And I think that is huge, even just from communication, right? I'm not going from my phone to a text to an email. It's like, hey, everything,
All that. Yeah.
like 95% of what you need can just be housed in Asana. Yes, if I need to type something out, that's a paragraph long. I'm not doing that in Asana, but at least you're like minimizing the amount of time people are in their email. And that's something like that entrepreneurs try to do at most, right? Like we're trying to get away from checking our email 47 times a day. So
Right.
it's nice to
Yep.
be able to create something that can do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the great thing about that too is you can communicate, like Suzy's saying, like you can message, like says a thread, like, hey, we're putting a pergola in next to the pool. Okay, they upload the estimate. You say, okay, the estimate's approved, right? Everybody, let's communications
Yeah.
back and forth, back and forth.
Yep.
Put in the price, who is approved by, and everything like that. Once it's put up, then they take a picture of it's finished, right? So
Wow.
like you can see projects from cradle to grave through there. And you can go back and you have a reference of this, not digging through 575 emails that you had, from 3 years ago. I'm like, oh, when did we do that project? How much did it cost? Things like that, right? So
Yeah. So
Well,
that's been
yeah, that's so good. And I think even during that communication, that's a great example of like a pergola. I just imagine an email coming across, it probably starts with, maybe the girl on site sends you an email. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, well, let's bring this person in on it. Let's ask them. Okay, so CC them to that email. Okay, now the email goes over here. Let's send, what you guys are talking about is everybody's seeing the same thing. Everybody's right there. Everybody sees it. So there's no question. Cause I can just think of so many times my partner and I like, well, wait, they said that, but does our RVP, does our regional know about that? Have they been talking about that? Like we don't know when it's just an email between a couple people. You guys are talking about a centralized location where everybody can see it. Everybody has that communication. I can imagine that is so helpful. Knowing that everybody's on the same page. That is so important. And then I love what you're talking about there with organization, Suzy, and how imperative it is. And like, it's almost like a next level of organization. But while you were talking about that and bringing up Asana, what I noticed, like you guys really helped out your property management company, and that's great. And I'm sure they're so thankful for that. And it's really cool that you're able to do that. But like, that really helps you. I mean, you really got to partner with your property management company. The more you can do for them, it's only going to help you out. My partner and I were always talking about that. Like, the guys and girls that are on site at our site, like we would love for their lives to be easier. Like, what can we do if you're struggling just to keep up? Like, we'll go, we've got some contacts. Let's go see if we can find a contractor that can come in and turn some units, because you can't find it right now. And we'd rather you just keep up with maintenance. And so there's a lot of different ways, but I mean, you guys helped on like a global scale for them, like, portfolio wide to help them out. But man, it's going to benefit you guys and your properties, obviously.
yeah, absolutely. And there's still some things too, like you're mentioning, Lee, is like trying to find things that are more simple for your property manager, and making things more streamlined. Every time we go visit our properties, I always make it a point to like, hey, really engage and listen to. We have bi-weekly meetings with our on-site and our regionals, but at the same time, like we're not there
right
in their office space, right? So whenever we go visit, which we do quite often now, like monthly or something like that, like we go visit, and we like sit down and like, okay, what is, what's going on day to day? Like what processes are they working on? What things are they working on? So like, and every time we always find something that we're like, will make their life a little bit easier, right?
Awesome.
And so we always try to, hey, is there something, we always try to encourage them too, like, hey, is there anything that we can do right now to make your life easier? Is there something we need to purchase? Like somebody who's like, oh, I could use a new printer. This one printer is just taking too much toner. Like they would never bring that up because like, oh, we'll just deal with it, right? Yeah. But like makes things a lot easier, and then they can focus more on leasing, which is or like turning units and things like that, right? So
yeah, I love that, guys. Hey, did you say, Michael, that you guys do have a weekly meeting?
We do.
Okay. Yeah, we do too. So let's jump into that a little bit. As you're for, what are the things, what are you covering in that weekly meeting? Just kind of from a high level, like, if I want to check in on my property, what am I asking about? Is it, hey, where's vacancy at? Or, hey, what work orders we have? Like, what are maybe just call them KPIs, the key performance indicators, or however you guys do it. What are you checking in week to week to make sure, get some quick feedback on how's the property really performing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the property manager like fill out our KPIs every single week, excuse me, at the end of the week. And basically it has like, we have all income in there. Oh, sorry. We have leasing actions, right? We're sort of tracking leads. We're tracking how many of those leads get converted into
applications,
showings, and then turn into applications, and then are accepted, right, or approved, right? So we're tracking all those numbers to see if there's any kind of hang up through that whole process from intake through application, whatever.
Okay.
And then
Yep.
from there, and then we're also looking at income, right? So collected rent income, other income that's collected, and also delinquency, and we're kind of tracking delinquency. Hey, is there somebody carrying a large balance? Do we need to address that or something like that?
Yep. Yep.
Small balance, maybe not. And then from income, we move on to maintenance, right? How many work orders are currently open? How many got completed this past week?
What units are open that still need to be renovated?
Exactly.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
in each week, we're reporting exactly the unit number too. Like, so for 5 weeks, if unit number 63 has not been renovated, it'd be like, okay, hey, what's going on with unit 63? Why is it taking more than 5 weeks to turn that unit, right?
Right.
So we can ask
Yeah.
those questions, those deeper questions when we have the weekly meetings. And then we also track, another thing too, was we track burn off to loss to lease.
Yeah.
So we say, here's our market rent. And then here is our average rent, right? And what's that?
Yep.
And kind of we're tracking the burn off every time we put in new residents, especially when you do rent increases too. And then another thing too is like when we do like rubs, or not rubs, but like utility bill back, we see, okay, how many of the units are actually getting that utility bill back now? And so we can track how it takes in order to kind of get all the units up to date with that utility bill back.
Yeah. And then I guess beyond KPIs, we talk about like the projects that are happening at that time.
The big projects, bigger CapEx stuff. Yeah. It all comes down to occupancy, right? For so much of it, right? If you keep your building full now, you guys were talking too, like, hey, yeah, you can keep your building full and be $300 under market rent. Hey, we could do better than that, right? But and so it's good to track that. That's what you were talking about there, Michael, with the loss to lease. Like, if market rent's 1,000 and you're renting at 700, it's probably you are pretty full because nobody can find anything that cheap in the city, right? So they're coming to your place. So it's good occupancy wise, but you could do a lot better. But if you're challenging market rent, at least on your new units coming, and you're staying occupied, probably things are going well. But when you're not, like you said, you're tracking each of those things. Well, is it that we're not getting enough leads? Well, we can't get people in if no one's even coming to see the property. Okay. They are coming to the property, but we're not closing them. Somebody's not giving a good tour or not, maybe advertising, what's really good about this apartment complex. So they're not closing people. So we're getting people on the property, but they're not applying, or maybe we're getting a bunch of people apply and they're all, failing and not being approved. But yeah, that's all really good stuff because that drives the occupancy, which really kind of drives everything. And then you brought in Suzy, talking about the open units. Well, we can't rent the units if they're not ready. So, we may have 7 vacant units and we're like, well, why do we have 7? Well, 5 of them aren't even rent ready. So even if we get, a couple filled, we'll have nothing more ready to go. And that's never a good thing. You always want to have, if people come on and they want a place to rent, you better have, your open units ready. You would hate to have someone come on and want to live in your property and they can't, even though you have open units because they're not ready. Hey, Threefold listeners, just wanted to take a quick second here to promote our sponsor, a company that I'm a big fan of, done a lot of business. I'm a very happy customer of Prominent Title Agency. They are a full service title and escrow company licensed in Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Michigan, and Florida. They handle commercial transactions of all types and sizes, including multifamily, retail, industrial, hotels, medical buildings, restaurants, gas stations, golf courses. They are very experienced and efficient in handling large portfolios, including multiple properties and or multi-states, as well as entity transfers in Ohio. My guy over there is Rob Calabrese. He is the division director for Prominent Title Agency's commercial real estate division. Being a licensed attorney and title agent in Ohio and Kentucky, Rob has strong knowledge of the complex world of commercial real estate. He also offers legal services in all aspects of commercial real estate. Guys, I've worked with Rob a lot. We're getting a deal under contract now, and I told the broker, I said, man, I really want to work with Prominent Title. Just trust those guys over there. They're great. They're quick. Love working with those guys. Now, back to the show. What's your guys' portfolio look like today?
Yeah, so we have, 3 in Tulsa.
Okay.
3 in Tulsa, 2 in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And we have an Airbnb portfolio in Arlington, Texas as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Totaling like 500 units. And then we have 8 units that are in development right now. So we're excited about that. So we're learning the ropes in development.
Oh, that's cool, man. Just since COVID.
Yeah.
COVID gave you your launch. I mean, there's a few good things that came out of COVID for a few people.
Totally.
That's it. One of
a
the
lot of dedication.
Yeah.
It's really what it was.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. Wait, this has been really good stuff. I'm always harping on this to my listeners, anybody that will listen to me, just how important managing the manager is, getting the property management piece right. You guys highlighted that, and I could not agree more. If you've got a good property manager, your property is going to do well, but there's so much that you need to do as the asset manager to set them up for success, to help them out, and then to manage them, to stay on top of them, be the squeaky wheel sometimes, make sure, they're paying attention, because they may have a much broader portfolio, and you need them to spend time on yours as much as is needed. So that's really good stuff. As we wrap up here, guys, I always like to ask my guests, what would you say is the key ingredient for being a successful real estate investor?
For me, it's a network. For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we got to start, just networking and understanding, or meeting, people who are doing the same things we wanted to do, and then kind of letting them take us under their wing. You have anything else?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, and I guess if you're transitioning, or doing two things at the same time, just actually putting in the work. I think that's the key. Day after day, even if it's 30 minutes, it's still a big deal. Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of the entrepreneurial life, right? I mean, you can always be doing stuff. I mean, you got to be really careful with this, but people say hey, if you haven't made it yet, what are you doing on a Saturday? You should be doing some stuff. And I think there's a balance there, but there's something to that. That's what's different about entrepreneur. It doesn't, and sometimes it might be here and there, but there's a lot more upside there if you are willing to work hard like that. That's good. Wait, while you guys are doing that, while you're working so hard, networking, doing all these things to have success in real estate, what would you say is a key ingredient to making sure you're having success outside of your work life? This could be bigger than just people in real estate, but specifically for real estate entrepreneurs, what are some things you guys are doing to make sure, the things that are more important, your faith, your family, those things, that you're having success there as well?
So Michael and I actually have a morning routine together, because our green zones are in the morning. So that's the only reason we choose the morning.
Okay.
So we do that together every morning, but then we also actually do a Sunday sync. So it's hey, what does our week look like work wise? But then we also find time to fill in gaps for us, right? Because that's a big deal as well.
Yep.
When we know what one another is working on, we can be each other's cheerleader. We can we know in advance if one of us has a busier week than the other. So it's not coming the day of oh, well, I have all this stuff to do today. It's oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. So I think it's just constantly checking in with one another to find out how we can fill gaps, whether that, is going outside in nature or working out or just spending time with one another.
Yearly, we sit down every year together and do a yearly goal setting retreat.
Yes.
We kind of work through that over a couple of days, and then we align on each other on our goals, because we have the same vision, and we make sure that our goals to achieve that vision are kind of all aligned. And then we kind of look at that quarterly and see where we're at. So
yeah, it's so good to set that up. But man, life can get in the way, right? And just kind of get carried away, and you're feel like a leaf blowing in the wind. But I think what you said, the morning routine, spending time together in the morning, but then even Sunday, getting out in front of it and being even more proactive to say, what's this week? My wife is so good about that. And I'm really blessed by it, that she's always saying how can I serve you this week? And then, I'll follow with that. How can I serve you this week? But like you said, so what do you have going on? What can I encourage you in? And if you know that ahead of time, you're going to do so much better of a job of doing that, other than, oh yeah, you've got that going on. I bet you've been stressed about that, man. I wish I would have helped you out and encouraged you or talked to you about that. Right. It's so important. It's so good. That's what, spouses, partners are for. But it does take, I think, that Sunday sync. I love even that term. It takes doing that, because if you don't think about it, you'll just get carried away. Again, especially I would say maybe not especially, but entrepreneurs for sure. But probably everybody. Anybody with busy jobs, with kids. It gets carried away. So it's really good. I appreciate you guys sharing that. Hey, I don't normally ask this, but you guys have been traveling so much. What are some of the coolest spots you guys have been to? I feel like I have to ask this. You've been to so many cool spots over the past year.
The cool spot over the last year? Oh, I can answer that. Antarctica.
Okay. Oh, wow.
It was just so cool there's no light pollution, right? So when you go outside, it's oh my gosh, there are millions of stars without a telescope. And it's so quiet. But then the animals are so playful with you, the penguins and such, they'll come up next to you on the kayak, because they're oh, no one's ever heard us before, but you're new and we don't know what you're doing. And so it was super cool to be able to experience it, all of it, right? There was one morning or afternoon, I guess technically, and a lot of us were doing a polar plunge, and just a whale came through the polar plunge. It's
20 yards away. It's popped up. It's hey guys. We're all jumping in there, in the water, freezing.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so it was cool.
That's amazing. Wow. How neat. That's awesome. Well, guys, this has been really good. Again, thank you for sharing this with us. Again, I think even if you're local, this is how you should set up your business. I think, again, especially starting out, I think you've got no business being your own property manager, like on the big stuff, like get a property management company. They're going to be such a good partner to you, but you've got to be organized. Like you guys talked about, you've got to set it up right. You've got to assist them, be a help to them, and manage them well in order for them to do a really good job in your property to do well. So this has been really great stuff. Hey guys, I forgot to mention, so I know you guys are active on social media. I see you guys on Facebook, LinkedIn, stuff like that. Anything else? And then I know it's Adventurous REI, right? So spelled out Adventurous and then REI, like realestateinvesting.com. That's the best place to send people and then connect with you guys on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you just go to adventurousrei.com/info, that's like a landing page where you can go to all the social media handles and everything like that.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. That makes it really easy. Well done. Okay. Well, hey, again, Suzy and Michael, thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for another great episode. I hope you'll take action on what you've learned today. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving Lee a 5-star rating and review. And check him out on threefoldrei.com. Until next time, 1 Timothy 6:17.